the second Shabbos in Adar, which is this Shabbos, we always read Parshas Zachor. The Parshas Zachor is a deraisa, almost l'kula alma. Reading Parshas Zachor is deraisa. The mitzvah deraisa is to remember what Amalek did to us and to not forget it, two things, and to understand that we have to be timcha zecher Amalek. We have to wipe them off this evil. We have to get rid of evil in this world. In terms of the deraisa, which part of it is deraisa? Is it the reading of the? Do you have to say it? Maybe can you just remember it, talk about it? Do you have to read it in the Sefer Torah? Does the Sefer Torah have to be in a minyan? Is all that deraisa? How much of this is deraisa and how much of this is derabanan? Big difference, because what's not deraisa, maybe you could, like, if it's difficult, we could push it off or not to. So it's a very interesting. One of the big rayas to this is the Gemara that says that Rabbi Lazar ben Hyrcanus, the great Tana, Rabbi Lazar ben Hyrcanus, had a slave, Evet Kanani, by the name of Tobias. He had a slave as an Evet Kanani. He lived in his house for many years, so he knew all about Judaism, but he was a guy. He needed a minyan. So he freed the Evet Kanani, turned him into a Jew quickly, so he would have a 10th man for a minyan. So this is an interesting Gemara because, in fact, it's usher to free an Evet Kanani. So the answer is, well, he needed a minyan, but the minyan is only derabanan. So how did he free the minyan? Agav, what has to be talking about here, an Evet Kanani, just while we're here, an Evet Kanani comes in with some level of gerus. In other words, as soon as you move into a Jewish home, so you already have to have done a bris milah to go into the house, and there's certain mitzvahs that you have to do. And he's living in the house of Rabbi Lazar ben Hyrcanus. Well, how would that be? Living in the house of Rabbi Lazar ben Hyrcanus. But you still need a gerus, and a gerus is a process. It means you have to have kabbalas mitzvahs, you have to have toivel. So I'm presuming that this Gemara, even though we see it like, oh, when you're 10th man, you're free, but it was a gerus process that he would have needed afterwards, so it's going to take a few days. So probably a few days in advance, I'm imagining Rabbi Lazar ben Hyrcanus saying, I'm not going to have a minyan, so let's free this slave, and then we'll have 10 good men. But the Rosh asked this question: how could it be that he freed an Evet Kanani when it's against the law? It's against the Torah to free an Evet Kanani. As a deraisa, the answer is that it must have been for another deraisa. What's the other deraisa? Says the Rosh. Probably it was for Parshas Zachor. And since it was for Shabbos Parshas Zachor, he knew he needed a minyan, and the new Parshas Zachor is coming up, so he freed him. Then the Rosh is docha that, says it's hard to believe that this whole story is all about Parshas Zachor, but it doesn't make any difference whether it is or it isn't. From this Rosh, not from the story, from the Rosh we learned that Parshas Zachor is deraisa, but not only is Parshas Zachor deraisa, but that you need a minyan for Parshas Zachor deraisa, because otherwise why did he free him? So it wasn't just for the Parshas Zachor, but also, do you need a minyan for Parshas Zachor? Of course not. But you're supposed to read Parshas Zachor from a Sefer Torah, and you can't take out the Sefer Torah and read unless you have a minyan. So you really have like 3 steps over here. You need it's deraisa to read it. The Chasam Sofer says, I want to mention, well-known Chasam Sofer, he says that it's very important to do it now. Why? Because the lois sishkach, the Gemara says that you can't forget about Amalek, and the shir shikcha is yud beis chodsh, 12 months, that's what it takes to forget. So it's not like you could do it, even though b'diavad, the Magen Avraham says you can have purim. If you miss Parshas Zachor, you should listen on Purim, but Purim doesn't really do it, says the Chasam Sofer. It's a very b'diavad, because Purim, by Yishma Amalek, A is past the 12-month mark, so you were already over the Aveira of Lois Sishkach, and also the Mishnah Berurah doesn't like it, because he's saying that if you read the Bishalach, that we made war with Amalek, it doesn't say all the main things, like Timcha Zecher Amalek, Zachor al Tishkach, it doesn't say in the same way. So Mishnah Berurah doesn't like it, the Chasam Sofer doesn't like it. That's a very big b'diavad. So we have to do this on Shabbos, but here's the knetch that I want to say. The deraisa is to read it to say it on Dafka this week. We shouldn't go further past this coming Shabbos. it should be done by a Sefer Torah. A Sefer Torah needs a minyan, and it comes out to get this minyan, even though the minyan per se is d'Rabbanan, but since it's enabling the mitzvah of reading it from a Sefer Torah, which is enabling the idea of Zachor V'al Tishkach, so then the whole thing is called deraisa, and we get to do a very important mitzvah deraisa. Just with this mitzvah deraisa, this is I believe the most important Kriyas HaTorah of the year. Can't be a more important Kriyas HaTorah because there's no mitzvah deraisa to do Kriyas HaTorah. So what it means to say is really everybody is supposed to be, this is for men and for women, everybody is supposed to be reading Parshas Zachor. It's our mitzvah. So it means that the Balkara has to have das to be motzi everybody, not like this by every Kriyas HaTorah. Just by Parshas Zachor, he has to have kavanah to be motzi everybody, and everybody has to have kavanah to be yotzei and listen very carefully.